Hey guys, happy Thursday and welcome to Story Time. I've got two books for you today that I think look pretty good. The first one is called Those Darn Squirrels by Adam Rubin, and it's illustrated by Daniel Salmieri. On the outskirts of town, at the edge of the forest, there was a little old house. The only thing older than the little house was the man who lived in it, Old Man Fuquire. Old Man Fuquire was so old that when he sneezed, dust came out. He was also a grump. He hated pie. He hated puppies. The only thing he liked was birds. All summer long, the old man painted pictures of the birds that visited his backyard. There were whirlybirds and bonga birds, baba birds, and yabba birds. Even a rare flugelbird came by once or twice. Fuquire's paintings weren't very good, but the birds never said anything. When the air turned crisp and the leaves began to change color, the old man grew sad. He knew that soon the birds would fly south for the winter, as they did every year, and that he would be lonely. Then he had an idea. If he fed the birds, maybe they would stick around. So Old Man Fuquire built beautiful bird feeders and put them up all around his backyard. He filled the feeders with delicious seeds and berries, and soon birds came from all over the forest just to eat in the old man's yard. But the birds weren't the only ones who liked the bird feeders. The squirrels did too. Not many people know this, but squirrels are the cleverest of all the woodland creatures. In fact, they're fuzzy little geniuses. They can make a house out of a tree, a bed out of a bunch of leaves, and a box kite out of twigs, dirt, and squirrel spit. They are also excellent at math. Winter was fast approaching, and the squirrels needed to gather as much food as they could to get ready. So they decided to take some of the bird food. The birds were not happy. Neither was Old Man Fuquire. When he discovered what had happened, he shook his old man fist and yelled, "Those darn squirrels!" He filled up the feeders again, but this time he hung them from a clothesline. Then he went back inside, confident that the squirrels would no longer be able to get the seeds and berries. But the squirrels were determined. They devised a plan, and this time they took all the food from the bird feeders. The birds were furious. "Harump, harump, harump," yelled a bonga bird. "Those darn squirrels," yelled Old Man Fuquire. "Yum," said the squirrels. Look at them. Look at all their fat bellies. Now it was Old Man Fuquire's turn to devise a plan. He went to the general store to get supplies. He bought lasers and clamps. He bought wires and springs. He bought all sorts of tools and built a veritable fortress around his bird feeders. Then he refilled them very carefully. "Na na 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 na," snorted the flugelbird. The squirrels stayed up all night working out their strategy. They drank cherry cola and ate salt and vinegar chips to help them stay awake. Finally, they had it, the perfect plan. They put on their tiny helmets and prepared to launch themselves into the air over the fence, between the lasers, and on to the bird feeders. The first squirrel misfired and hit a tree. The second squirrel went too high and landed in a bucket. The third squirrel sailed clear over the house. The birds laughed and laughed. They each had one last delicious mouthful of seeds and berries from the old man's feeders. Then they flew south for the winter, just as they did every year, said the flugelbird. After the birds left, Old Man Fugwire was lonely, just as he was every year. He fixed himself some cottage cheese and pepper, his favorite snack, but he was still lonely. When he looked out the window, the squirrels could tell that he wasn't happy. "Go away," shouted the old man. "I don't like you squirrels." The squirrels held a meeting deep inside a large tree. They decided to give the old man a present to make up for taking the seeds and the berries. Now, not many people know this, but squirrels are not only fuzzy little geniuses, they also collect just about anything they find on the ground. These squirrels had a vast stockpile of spectacular junk to choose from. But what would Fugwire like? Bottle caps? Popsicle sticks? Postage stamps? Finally, they had it. The perfect gift. Oops. The squirrels stacked all of their loose change on Old Man Fugwire's doorstep. There were dimes and pennies. There were nickels and quarters. There were even a few tokens from Coco's arcade. It all added up to $47.36, plus a few rounds of skee-ball. "Maybe you squirrels aren't so bad," Fugwire said when he found the coins, "but I still like the birds better." This gave the squirrels another idea. They raided their junk collection again and got to work. When Old Man Fugwire woke up the next morning, he was amazed to see that the birds had returned. But wait, those things weren't birds. They were squirrels in disguise. "Great googly moogly," said Old Man Fugwire. "This will make quite a painting." He ran outside and took down the lasers and the wires and the spring-loaded trapeze. He turned all the bird feeders into squirrel feeders. Then he painted till his brush ran out of bristles. The squirrels were so overjoyed they had a party in Old Man Fugwire's house. "Those darn squirrels," said Fugwire, and he shook his old man fist and smiled. The end. That was really good. I loved that one. Our next book is called Up the Creek, and it is by Nicholas Oldland. There once was a bear, a moose, and a beaver who were the best of friends, though they often disagreed. One sunny day, the bear, the moose, and the beaver decided to go canoeing. The moose wanted to steer, but so did the bear and the beaver. They all sat in the stern. With so much weight in the back of the canoe, it flipped and they ended up in the water. So they played eeny, meeny, miny, moe, and it was decided that the moose would steer. They all settled back into the canoe and began to paddle. The bear insisted on paddling port side, but the beaver and the moose also preferred the left. With everyone paddling on the same side, they traveled in circles. Soon their arms grew tired, so they began to switch sides. That's when they finally started to travel in a straight line. But just as they began to make progress, they came to a stop at a beaver dam. They all had different ideas as to how to get across. The beaver wanted to push the canoe, but that didn't work. The moose thought they should pull the canoe. That didn't work either. Fortunately, the bear figured it out. It was the only way across was to portage. Back in the water, the bear and the moose and the beaver settled into a rhythm and started to really enjoy paddling along the river. But it wasn't long before they began to argue. They argued so loudly that they didn't notice the current growing stronger or the quiet rumbling in the distance. Until it was too late. The river had turned into a wild whitewater rapids. Oh no! Thrown sideways, underwater, through the air and everywhere, the bear, the moose, and the beaver held on for their lives. Exhausted, bruised, and wet, the three friends landed on a rock in the middle of the rapids. The moose wanted to burn the canoe to make a signal fire. The bear wanted to throw the beaver to shore to get help. The beaver figured swimming to shore would be safer. They argued over whose plan was best well into the night. The next morning, it dawned on the bear, the moose, and the beaver that they would have to work together to make it home safely. So they climbed back into their battered canoe, took a deep breath, and ran the rapids. They twisted, leaped, and crashed and blasted through the water. The rapids were fierce, but with the bear's powerful strokes, the moose's steady hoof, and the beaver's clever commands, they set a true, clear course. At last, the bear, the moose, and the beaver made it to shore. After a much-needed nap, the bear, the moose, and the beaver worked together to repair their canoe and paddles, catch some fish, and cook lunch. Before they tucked into their meal, they all gave thanks for the wildest adventure they ever had. Rested and relaxed, the bear, the moose, and the beaver were ready to set out for home. After taking a long look at the raging rapids, they decided to walk. And who could disagree with that? The end. That was a good one too. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the stories for today, and I will see you next week. Bye.